Hi, I'm Paul Perdue, and I am the infrastructure nerd.
And I'm Mary Jo Boyd, and I'm a legal technologist. There are a lot of different ways that you can define your payment allocations and tabs.
But what about those times where you want the payment to go someplace different than the way it should default?
Exactly. Well, there's a little button in the payment window that you can actually change the allocations right on the fly as you enter a payment.
Can you show us how that works?
I can. So we're going to talk about a payment and how to allocate that payment specifically to either timekeepers or to statements. So we can set up all of our allocations within a client or within the system to say that payments go to certain places, but I'm talking about a specific payment. So I've opened up a client here, and we're going to look at a payment here for Marcus Phillips. We have two payments, but let's say that we're going to work with this $1,000 payment, and I want to make sure that I'm allocating it properly. I'm going to click on that payment, say OK, and open up the payment. This is one that has already been entered, but you could do this right when you're entering the payment as well. I could go back in and just create a payment over here as normal, and I can allocate it right when I'm doing that as well. So either way, you can get into it, and you can do it either after the fact, as long as it's still in WIP, or as you're entering the payment. How you allocate it specifically is by using this little icon right here. I think it looks like a little $sign with wings, so you can tell it how to fly around and how you want it. So we're just going to take this $1,000 payment, click on the allocation window, and it brings up the payment allocation summary. We start off on the summary here. If I wanted to, you can see how the payment is broken down right now. If I wanted to change my fee allocation, I'm just clicking on the fees. Now this is overall, it's not a specific statement, it's just saying in this example, we're saying that Michael Jensen is getting $315.18, Paul Martin is getting $44.27, and so on. Let's say I needed to change that and give Michael a little bit more money, and Paula Ann doesn't get any. I can change this amount here to whatever figure I want, and I can change hers to 0 if I wanted to. So we can do that, and I don't know what the math is here, but we can do, I don't know, $350, and that tells me I still have $945, so $359.45. And now I can tell how much I have left to allocate right up here, the unapplied amount. So I'm going to hit tab. So now I've still got my full $1,000 allocated, but I have changed it to give Michael Jensen a little more of the allocation and Paula Ann nothing. And I can change all of these. I could have split this up, maybe given Kendra a little bit, Ron a little bit, and so on. Now you want to be careful when you're doing this and make sure that you're doing it purposely. We don't want to just go in and just randomly change allocations without it being correct, but this is where we can come in and do that by attorney. You also can do the same for expenses. Maybe I didn't even want anything to apply to expenses on this particular payment. I want it all to go to fees, or maybe I want it all to go to advances, or I don't want any of it to go to advances. I want everything to go towards attorney fees. It's always going to tell me how much was billed. It's always going to tell me how much is due of that amount, and then what the balance due will be after it applies it. So that makes it really easy to come in and change this. If I don't want anything to go to advances, I would zero all these out, and I could go back to fees, and I can still see I have a balance due here even after it's allocated part of that payment, and I can change that and put all of that amount on fees. So this is a way, usually when we have our allocation set up at the client matter level, it's always going to apply to, finance charge, possibly the oldest advance, the oldest expense, and then fees. But sometimes that's not what we want. So that's a perfect example of when you would come in, take out everything for expenses and advances, and put it all to fees. Occasionally, we want to go back and we want to allocate it by statement. Maybe we don't want to pay that oldest statement first, which it wants to do. We always want to kind of pay the oldest amount due first in most cases, but sometimes we want to pay a newer statement, not the older one. In that case, I can come in here and see how each of these are broken down. Here's my oldest statement, which it is going to try to apply as much as it can to those older statements. And then again, it's going to pay expenses and advances first on each of those. So if I look at my fees here, it's not even putting anything on that statement. Expenses and so on, it's paying the expenses and advances first. Then it's going to go back to the oldest statement and try to do the fees. Again, depending on how you have your allocations set up at the client level. But that is where you can change these things matter by matter. If I want to start from scratch, I want to just get that $1,000 payment and I manually want to tell it where I want to put it. I don't have to go in and worry about clearing out everything first and then going into each one. I don't have to click on each and everything, clear it out to 0 and then start over. We've got this clear all allocations button here. So I can clear all and it will just make everything 0 and tell me I have my full $1,000 to allocate. Then I can go in and either do this by statement or in total here, and it will again go back to the oldest first, and start applying. So if I wanted this whole thing to go to the newest statement or whichever I have the most of due, this one total due is $1,067.50. So if I paid this whole amount as much as I could on this newest statement, I could go in and manually do that. And it's going to constantly tell me how much I have left to apply up here, so I'm always on track. So I'll just do the remaining, and I still have a balance due on this statement, but I've paid most of this 9/30 statement. So definitely a lot more control than what you have just with your client settings and then a few of the other ways that we can allocate payments. Once you've allocated it exactly how you want it to be, you can then go in and you can click done and it will then save those payment allocations that you've set. Very easy to do. I'm going to just get out of this. I'm not really going to change it. If I had to change more payments, I could do that. I could click on the other side, whichever other payment I wanted to do. And again, it can be done right when you're entering a payment for whoever. I can come in and create a new payment for $1,000 and allocate it right at that moment and just come in and again, clear allocations or just apply it. So very, very helpful, useful tool if you have to modify those payment allocations. So there you go. Another way that you can just allocate your payments on the fly to make your entry much easier.
And that's one more way that we can help you to worry less
and practice more.